Imagine you're a detective in Seattle, 1974. Women are disappearing one by one. There's no connection between them at first glance. Different universities, different cities, different lives. Yet they all vanish without a trace. No bodies, no suspects, just a series of chilling disappearances. As the cases pile up, you start to see a pattern. All of them are young, attractive women. All of them were last seen in familiar places, campuses, parks, their own homes. You start to wonder who could be responsible for these disappearances. The more you dig into the cases, the more unnerving they become. Eyewitnesses recall seeing a friendly man asking for help. Sometimes he had a cast on his arm or was using crutches. It seems harmless enough. What kind of monster would pretend to be injured? But then you realize this is part of the plan. Whoever is behind these disappearances is smart. He's playing on people's empathy, luring them into danger. The image of the man begins to form in your mind. Someone who blends in, someone who doesn't fit the typical profile of a killer. But still, you have no name, no face, just shadows. As the disappearances continue, your frustration grows. Every time you think you're close to a lead, it slips away. The women vanish in the same way. No signs of struggle, no screams, no evidence left behind. You comb through their lives, looking for something, anything, that could explain why they were targeted. But you keep coming up empty. The newspapers start running stories about a serial kidnapper, and fear spreads through the city. People begin to lock their doors at night. Mothers warn their daughters to never walk alone, and you feel the weight of these unsolved cases on your shoulders. You need to stop this person before he strikes again. It's late one night when you get a call. Another woman is missing, this time from a college campus. But this time, there's a break. A witness comes forward and describes a man with a cast on his arm, asking for help, carrying books to his car. The car is described as a light-colored Volkswagen Beetle. This is the first solid clue you've had in months. You send out notices to look for the car, hoping it leads somewhere. For the first time, you feel a glimmer of hope, a chance to stop this predator before he takes another life. The description of the car leads to a name, Ted Bundy, a law student with a seemingly bright future. At first, it seems impossible. How could someone like Bundy be responsible for these horrific crimes? He's well-spoken, intelligent, and has no prior criminal record. But as you dig deeper, disturbing details begin to emerge. Bundy's name starts to come up in connection with multiple cases, and you realize you're not just dealing with a serial kidnapper, you're dealing with a killer, and the clock is ticking. The investigation begins to pick up speed as you gather more evidence. Witnesses from various cities report seeing Bundy's Volkswagen Beetle near the locations where women disappeared. The descriptions of Ted start aligning, and it becomes clear that the same man is responsible for these kidnappings. But Bundy, calm and composed, continues to live his life as if nothing is wrong. He maintains his relationships, attends law school, and charms everyone around him. You can feel the frustration mounting. How can a man like this be a cold-blooded killer? Then finally, a major breakthrough occurs. Bundy is arrested for a minor traffic violation, and during the search of his car, the police find suspicious items: handcuffs, a crowbar, and a mask. These aren't just ordinary tools, they're the tools of a predator. Although Bundy remains composed and insists on his innocence, you know that this is the moment you've been waiting for. The puzzle pieces are starting to fall into place, and you're getting closer to exposing the monster hiding behind the friendly facade. Even though Bundy is in custody, proving his guilt is still an uphill battle. He's clever. There's no direct evidence linking him to the murders, and his charm works in his favor. You and your team work tirelessly, digging into every piece of evidence, interviewing every possible witness, trying to build a case strong enough to convict him. Meanwhile, Bundy remains confident, even representing himself in legal matters. He seems untouchable, but you know the truth. He's responsible, and you're determined to prove it. As Bundy's name begins to surface in the media, the public is shocked. How could someone so seemingly perfect, a law student, a community volunteer, be a killer? But as more details of his arrest emerge, people begin to see the cracks in his facade. Women start coming forward, recounting their strange encounters with Bundy. and the chilling realization sets in. The man they once trusted could have been their worst nightmare. For you, it's a reminder that evil doesn't always wear a terrifying mask. It can look just like the person sitting next to you. Bundy is more than just a killer. He's a master manipulator. As the investigation deepens, you realize you're not just battling against a man, but against a mind that thrives on control. Bundy enjoys the game. He relishes in the attention, using his intelligence and charm to manipulate not just his victims, but the legal system, the media, and even you. He knows the law well, and every step you take, he seems to be 2 steps ahead. But this isn't just about outsmarting Bundy. It's about bringing justice to the victims who can no longer speak for themselves. The trial begins, and the courtroom is packed with reporters, curious citizens, and families of the victims. Bundy's charm is on full display. He represents himself, questioning witnesses and giving speeches that captivate the jury. But despite his efforts, the evidence against him is overwhelming. Witness testimonies, forensic evidence, and the sheer number of disappearances tied to him paint a damning picture. As you watch him in court, you feel a mix of anger and disbelief. How can he be so calm? But you know that the truth will prevail and justice is within reach. After days of deliberation, the jury reaches its verdict. Bundy is found guilty of multiple counts of murder. The courtroom erupts in a mix of relief and sorrow. For you, this is a victory, but it's a bittersweet one. The families of the victims will never get their daughters back, and the horror of Bundy's actions will linger in the minds of those who witnessed the trial. But justice has been served, and the man who terrorized countless lives will finally face the consequences of his actions. Just when you think the nightmare is over, Bundy does the unthinkable. He escapes, not once, but twice. The first escape is audacious. While preparing for trial in Colorado, he jumps out of a second-story courthouse window and vanishes into the mountains. He's missing for days before being recaptured, but the shock lingers. Then incredibly, months later, he escapes again. This time he slips through the ceiling of his cell in a jail in Utah. His second escape leads to a spree of violence in Florida, including the brutal murders of several young women at a sorority house. You feel the weight of failure. How did he get away? Bundy's rampage in Florida shocks the nation. On a January night in 1978, he breaks into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University, attacking 4 women. 2 are killed and the other 2 barely survive. The brutality of the attacks is incomprehensible. Bundy bludgeons his victims with a log and then strangles them. It's clear that he's no longer just a killer. He's a man consumed by rage, out of control. The pressure to catch him mounts like never before. The public demands justice, and this time, you know, there can be no mistakes. Bundy's time is running out. After the Florida attacks, police in Pensacola arrest him when he's caught driving a stolen vehicle. It's a relief, but the real battle has just begun. Bundy knows the system, and he's skilled at manipulating it to his advantage. He tries to delay the inevitable, denying his involvement in the murders and presenting himself as a victim of circumstance. But you and your team refuse to be fooled this time. The evidence is overwhelming, and this time, you have him where you want him, behind bars where he belongs. In 1979, Bundy stands trial for the Florida murders. The trial is broadcast nationwide, drawing massive attention. It's not just a legal battle, it's a media spectacle. Bundy, ever the manipulator, tries to use the spotlight to his advantage, presenting himself as his own attorney, attempting to charm the jury. But this time, there's no escaping the truth. The survivors testify, the forensic evidence is presented, and the sheer brutality of his crimes becomes undeniable. As the verdict is read, guilty on all counts, you feel the weight of justice finally being served. As the media frenzy dies down and the verdict sinks in, the true horror of Ted Bundy's life begins to unfold. He's no longer the charming law student or the misunderstood victim he pretended to be. He's a cold-blooded serial killer, a man responsible for the deaths of over 30 women. For you, the detective who has followed this case for years, there's a sense of closure, but also a lingering question. How did he manage to deceive so many for so long? The answer lies not just in his charm, but in society's unwillingness to see evil when it wears a familiar face. In 1989, as Bundy's execution date draws near, he begins to confess to more of his crimes. The confessions are chilling. He details the abductions, the murders, and the manipulation. He admits to crimes that were never even suspected, revealing just how deep his evil ran. For you, hearing these confessions brings both closure and a haunting reminder of the lives lost. Bundy's words confirm what you always knew. There were far more victims than anyone could have imagined, and the true extent of his terror may never be fully known. You realize, finally, the monster you've been chasing for years was even more dangerous than anyone suspected. On January 24, 1989, Ted Bundy is executed in Florida's electric chair. Outside the prison, crowds gather to celebrate the end of his life, cheering as the news breaks that the execution has been carried out. For many, it feels like justice has been served. A monster has finally met his end. But for you as a detective who has been immersed in this case for years, the feeling is more complex. There's relief, yes, but also a deep sadness for the lives that were destroyed and the families that will never fully heal. Bundy's death marks the end of his reign of terror, but the scars he left behind will remain forever. Even after his death, Ted Bundy's legacy lingers. He became a symbol of the darkest side of human nature, a man who used charm and intelligence to mask his monstrous desires. For you, as someone who worked to bring him to justice, there's a sense of closure, but also a lingering question. How many other monsters, hiding behind normal faces, are still out there? Bundy's case taught the world a valuable, albeit terrifying lesson. Evil can be hidden in plain sight. As you walk away from the case, you know this won't be the last time you face such darkness, but you hope the world is a little more prepared to see it for what it truly is. Thank you for watching today's video on the Unexplored Cases channel. If you find these unsolved cases intriguing and want to join us on our journey to uncover the truth, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. Your support motivates us to continue revealing the mysteries that remain unanswered. Let's work together to solve these cases and discover what remains to be uncovered in our upcoming videos. Thank you, and see you next time.